Good evening, everybody. Thank you so much for waiting. We had such a busy day, so I have so many clips for you and so much information as well. And I just first want to thank everybody who recently joined us. I'm always referring to us as a community. Thank you so much for following, for adding your voice to the conversation. So if this is your first time joining, my name is Olga. I'm all about actual news. Please comment, please ask questions, please add your voice to our conversation. I'm presenting actual news. I'm trying to make it entertaining. And yes, I'm straightforward, and it's actual news. Plus, I also add my opinion and analysis. And I certainly state whenever you will see, whenever it's my opinion, whenever it's a readout with actual news. And so add your voice, ask your questions, and we'll have a great time together. Of course, we're going to cover yesterday's town hall. We're going to talk about Trump and his reaction, some really disgusting videos from him, but most importantly, a great rally in Georgia with former President Obama, Bruce Springsteen, all type of Tyler Perry, all type of great guys, and of course, Vice President Harris. And so we're going to also discuss the news that came from President Biden today, also talk about Middle East. We're going to talk about Ukraine and the BRICS summit and the UN that plays a major negative part in the news today, especially when it comes to Europe. So a full broadcast. I hope you have the time, and if not, follow it up or tune in tomorrow morning. So thank you for joining. Let's start with our video of the day. Now, this one made me cry and made me happy and made me upset and made me very anxious too. So check it out, our video of the day.
$2 to vote.
One more time.
Black people in Mississippi had to pay $2 to vote. The white folks didn't pay nothing.
In what year? And what year was that?
That was 1960.
1960. And what are you about to do today?
I'm about to vote free. I got victory in my feet.
Yes, Lord. I know that. Let me see what victory in the feet looks like. That's the victory in the feet.
Victory in the feet. Now, this young, wonderful lady, she mentioned that she had to pay $2 to vote in 1960. The $2 in 1960 would be worth $21.30 today. And just to put it into proportion, most Black women, especially in the South, could only get jobs as maids. In the 60s, Black maids in the United States earned on average of $3.50 to $5 per day for 12 to 14-hour shift, while the national minimum wage was $1.25 per hour. So imagine you earn $3.50 a day, you have to feed the family, and you have to pay $2 to vote. So here's my question to all those Make America Great Again. How back do you want to go? Do you want to go to the 60s? When Black people had to pay $2 to vote while earning $3.50 for a full day of 14 hours of work? How disgraceful, how disgusting is it? No, we can't support the Make America Great, whatever. And by the way, America is also not a trash can. To quote the buffoon who stated it today.
A lot of people coming out of the Congo, not just South America, they're coming from 181 countries as of yesterday. Right, and we're a dumping ground. We're like a garbage can for the world. That's what's happened. That's what's happened to. We're like a garbage can. You know, it's the.
Now, because you look like a dumpster, it doesn't mean that we are a garbage can. No, we are the United States of America. And to visualize how great this country is and how special it is, let's listen to Tyler Perry, who just spoke in Georgia at the Harris rally.
I'm closing here. I just want to talk about that quilt that I used to wrap up in my grandmother's car, that quilt that my grandmother gave me. That quilt was a tapestry of beautiful pieces, but I completely ignored it. I didn't think it was worth anything because she had made it from all of these stitches and gave it to me as a gift. And I was walking past this antique store years later and I saw one in the window and I go, wow, that's a beautiful quilt. It reminds me of my grandmother. So I walk in, I talk to the lady. She started explaining to me that each patch in that quilt was worth this and meant this because of the woman who made it. So when I think about America, I think about my grandmother's quilt. We are all shapes, sizes, and colors, but we are one. And it was so important for me to stand with a candidate who understands that we as America, we are a quilt. And I could never stand with a candidate who wants America to be a sheet. So today, I voted for Kamala Harris. And Georgia, it was only about 11,400 votes that separated Trump and Biden. So every vote counts.
And Keith, to your point, I'm happy she's around to not only vote free, but have the opportunity to vote for a Black woman. Amen to that. Amen to that. We're not going back. Nobody is going back. We can't afford going back. Now, the buffoon, former President Trump today, did something remarkable. He played sort of an alternative version of an anthem. He saluted that anthem. And then they called the attendees to please rise for the unfairly treated January 6th, pay attention, hostages. You don't believe me? Watch.
Ladies and gentlemen, please rise for the horribly and unfairly treated January 6th hostages.
I don't think throwing up was part of our plan for tonight. So for that reason, for contrast, this is how and what Kamala Harris spoke about today, at the same time when Trump was doing all this buffoonery.
Well, let me start by saying I'm really very proud to announce that we've had some endorsements this morning as we've been rolling out endorsements, but two leaders in the Republican Party, the mayor of Waukesha, and then, of course, former Representative Fred Upton. And this continues to be, I think, evidence of the fact that people who have been leaders in our country, regardless of their political party, understand what's at stake. And they are weighing in courageously, in many cases, in support of what we need to have, which is a President of the United States who understands the obligation to uphold the Constitution of the United States and our democracy. As for last night, yet again, Trump not showing up, refused to be a part of a CNN debate, and clearly his staff has been saying he's exhausted, and the sad part about that is he's trying to be President of the United States, probably the toughest job in the world, and he's exhausted. I said last night what I mean, which is the American people are being presented with a very serious decision. And it includes what we must understand will happen starting on January 20th. in this choice. Either you have the choice of a Donald Trump who will sit in the Oval Office, stewing, plotting revenge, retribution, writing out his enemies list, or what I will be doing, which is responding to folks like the folks last night with a to-do list, understanding the need to work on lifting up the American people, whether it be through the issue of grocery prices and bringing them down, or investing in our economy, investing in our small businesses, investing in our families.
And that is the answer. And that is an answer of a candidate. And in this constellation, when this candidate is running versus this buffoonery, this is the winning candidate. I really encourage you to get a bit nerdy and start, there's vote.gov, but there's also, I can post some links where you can track how states, especially battleground states, are voting this time. And if you look, for instance, at Florida or Texas, you will see big patches with lots of people in them turning blue suddenly, which we haven't seen before. So all those polls, they make what? They make money to the mainstream media, because if it is presented to all of us as a horse race and you're full of anxiety, you want what? You want to watch more of it, right? And then those maps will come where they zoom into you, where you're like, are they going to see me in pajamas on my couch eating what I'm not supposed to be eating that late? That's how I always feel. Anyway, voting is one thing, but also staying factual, keeping your own hat on a swivel and consuming actual news is what is in our hands. It's in your hands. So it is your obligation to pay attention as to what type of news sources you consume. And no, I don't believe that somebody is undecided at this point. It's just a group of people wants to be on television, right? That's what we saw yesterday at this point infamous, at least in my mind, town hall on CNN. But before that, let's talk about President Biden. So quick update this afternoon. President Biden addressed the Pennsylvania local and statewide leadership of the Wisconsin Building Trades Council, AFL-CIO, to thank them for their continued efforts to mobilize workers in support of the Harris-Walz campaign and the Democratic candidates. During the call, union leaders thanked the president for his Investing in America agenda. Now, he arrived in Arizona. He's going to speak tomorrow. I'm going to cover it in detail tomorrow, so let's leave it up to then. I don't want to spread any rumors. He's there to apologize. To do that, he has announcements. And so let's cover it diligently. Let's cover it factually when this happened, because we have speeches that are embargoed, and I don't want to, read out any rumors that are everywhere across the internet, especially Twitter. Also, speaking of rumors, where's that video of Trump groping and schmoping and whatever? As I told you yesterday, that rumor was the squirrel, where we're supposed to forget about the Hitler story and we're supposed to await some shocking, at this point, what is shocking with Trump? We're supposed to await some shocking groping video of a convicted felon and a rapist? No. Now, so more coverage tomorrow on President. Talking about Harris, what is planned for Tuesday? And if you are in DC, maybe willing to travel to DC or near DC, this is an event to visit, because that will be really history in the making. So will be a symbolic venue and symbolic speech. Promised to be. Harris to contrast presidencies at the ellipse. And this is the area. You see the White House? So this is the south from the White House lawn. On Tuesday, Harris intends to illustrate what a presidency under her leadership would look like in the contrast to a Trump presidency, with her campaign advisors aiming to use the ellipse as the symbolic venue, according to an official. Now, in the application to the National Park Service, the campaign requested a stage and a setup for a standing crowd, estimating attendance of around 7,500 people. It outlined a speaking program featuring 4 to 5 speakers, including some elected officials. Now, this spot is exactly the spot where Trump spoke on January 6th, inciting violence, promising them that he will follow them to the Capitol, and that where all of that happened. So Tuesday, that promised to be the last campaign or rally event, and will be certainly very much remarkable. Now, also, what is remarkable is tomorrow, Vice President Harris is joined in Houston by Beyonce. And Beyonce is rumored to be performing. For that reason, I'm afraid to stream that because that will certainly right away cause the copyright violation. But tomorrow, 3 p.m. Eastern Daytime in Houston. So tune in. It's 2 p.m. Central, 3 p.m. Eastern, and 12 p.m. Pacific. That's when the rally will be. Now, perhaps Beyonce is coming in later, but certainly that's what to expect tomorrow. DC traffic is a nightmare if y'all going too early. Yeah. If that thing is at 3, you got to be there at 6 a.m. I know. Watch party Harris event on Tuesday. Yes, let's do it. Let's absolutely do it. For those who don't want to travel, let's do it. Yes. Beyonce, I would love to do tomorrow, but if there is a performance or any type of music, which certainly is to be expected, Beyonce is not tending to be a speaker, but she performs. So not believing Beyonce until I see her there. I learned my lesson from the DNC. Exactly, right? When we were waiting for her, and then yeah, exactly. So Keith, I'm with you. So let's see what happens. But then Tuesday watch party, Brandon, you said that, right? Great. Yes, Brandon said it. Let's do it. We got it. We'll do the watch party. Now, let's get serious for a second. So some good news. Vice President Harris shared a record support for small businesses and streamlined contracting opportunities. VP Harris announced today that the Small Business Administration, the SBA, achieved a record $56 billion in lending to over 100,000 small businesses in fiscal year 2024, marking the highest financing level in more than 15 years. Quote, small businesses are the backbone of our economy, and we know that small business owners need access to capital to hire more employees, to grow their businesses, and advance innovation, unquote. The Biden-Harris administration has supported a significant surge in entrepreneurship with nearly 20 million applications for new businesses since taking office and notable increases in business ownership among Black and Hispanic families. However, this support faces challenges from congressional Republicans seeking to cut SBA funding and repeal investments from the Inflation Reduction Act. And so the details, it's a long readout. Well, it's interesting and it's useful, specifically if you are a business owner or you have a business owner in your family or you plan to open a business. Certainly it's interesting to know how you can get capital, because also some loans can be forgiven, and it describes how that would work. So this will be in your newsletter tonight. If you're not following there, please go ahead, onest.substack.com. Also, if you find something interesting in that newsletter, share it so people find actual news and sources for it. Okay. And by the way, if you're supporting, you're following, thank you. I'm always very much grateful. Like it, share, whatever you need to do with this video. I always forget to say that. Now, a long readout indeed. Let's talk about Let's talk about the CNN town hall. Here's my opinion. Okay, opinion, warning. Vice President Kamala Harris provided comprehensive insights into her plans, policies, and personality, despite Anderson Cooper's attempts at the gotcha questions. It certainly sounded more like Fox Entertainment Network. They called it themselves in court, so I'm being specific. Rather than really CNN, but what is CNN these days? The audience appeared to be more cast than vetted, though. Because when they presented those six people, where they asked them, did she convince them to vote for her or not? And they presented names. Basic Google search, and I don't want to name them, I don't want to dox anybody, just generally speaking, showed me that one guy was a pro-life radio host who discusses politics for a living. And I listened to his interviews back from 2022, where he claimed that homelessness was in San Francisco. Kamala Harris caused homelessness. Sorry, it was 2019. Yeah, that's when he claimed that. Yeah. So anyway, I went back. Now, another one was an American Canadian actress. Another one is a real estate agent who exclusively follows Trump family, like Ivanka, Donald Jr., all of them. Just that on Twitter, and some others as well. So, it's more casting than vetting. And what is undecided at this point? And my question is, if you are undecided, it means you're out of the loop. It means like you're not voting at all. You're not interested. So how come you figured out how to be cast by CNN? You showed up around 2 p.m., went through all the security checkups to be there at 9 p.m. You spent all day, workday, sitting there, being on television. Meanwhile, you're still undecided and not interested in politics. One guy was a professor. One guy was what? A Republican guy who runs for something, right? Come on now. If that's like an Apprentice shit show, like we're pretending that it's like, it's a reality thing, which nothing is real, it's all casting, but we're presenting it as a reality show, then say it. Like when you see a commercial when they brush teeth or something and the doctor speaks and they're like, this doctor is cast, it's an actor. Has to come with warning, right? So, now, and there's a point, right? So think about it. If all CNN is caring about is clickbait and those clickbaity headlines, if that's the entire focus of everything they're doing, and still their data shows that their ranking is tanking, how good is your management and leadership? Just wondering. But regardless of all these factors, Kamala Harris absolutely delivered. And I want to show 8 clips to prove the point. First one is that's where Anderson Cooper asked. By the way, weirdly, they entered. There were 2 nice seats, chairs. She wanted to sit down. Anderson Cooper remained standing and started bombarding her with questions whether Trump is racist, which was kind of hella weird, right? You start an interview, it's kind of like whatever. And they kept standing throughout this entire program, which then I thought, why are the chairs even there? Anyway, let's watch the clip.
Donald Trump at the lead.
You've quoted General Milley calling Donald Trump a fascist. You yourself have not used that word to describe him. Let me ask you tonight, do you think Donald Trump is a fascist?
Yes, I do. Yes, I do. And I also believe that the people who know him best on this subject should be trusted. Again, look at their careers. These are not people, with the exception, I think, of only Mike Pence. These were not politicians. These are career people who have served in the highest roles in national security, who have served as generals in our military, who are highly respected. Talking about the person who would be commander-in-chief, not to mention what we know and what they've told us about how he talks about the military.
And certainly, yes, she called him a fascist, but sometimes you have to name a thing, right? I grew up in Germany. There's a saying, call the baby by its name. And now, 12 days, dozen days before the election, we have to call it the way it is. He's unhinged. I'm not sure. I'm not a doctor, whether it's dementia or he's gaslighting. I have a great clip for you tomorrow from Professor Galloway, where he speaks about he's a professor in marketing and business, and certainly he's analyzing the strategy behind the Trump's renting. And I want to pay some, respect to that video and discuss it with you tomorrow. So that will be tomorrow because we have a lot of stuff for today. But certainly now, next question would be, or the answer that I want to present to you is where she spoke about the border wall, and she made sure to point out that the photo ops that Trump loved doing were actually in front of the pieces that former President Obama did build.
Well, let's talk about Donald Trump and that border wall. So remember, Donald Trump said Mexico would pay for it? Come on, they didn't. How much of that wall did he build? I think the last number I saw is about 2%. And then when it came time for him to do a photo op, you know where he did it? In the part of the wall that President Obama built.
But
it's buffoonery, to make it nice and PG, whatever. It's buffoonery. Then she talked about this, at this point, infamous statement of the enemies from within and what Trump means by it. And I know you've heard so much, about it, but perhaps somebody hasn't. So 1 minute.
In 13 days, the American people will decide who is the next president of the United States. In 13 days, you will decide who is sitting in the Oval Office on January 20th. And on one hand, you have in Donald Trump someone who has increasingly proved himself to be unstable, and who, as we have established and the people close to him have established, he is unfit to serve. Somebody who, on January 20th, you can be sure, will spend full time, like we know, and we've seen the image mentally of him sitting in the dining room off of the Oval Office, watching for hours as people violently attack the Capitol. You can be sure, because he has said he would weaponize the Department of Justice to go after his political enemies, that you can look at a Donald Trump in the White House after January 20th, sitting in that Oval Office, plotting his revenge. He has talked about the enemies within. We haven't even raised that subject, Anderson. The enemies within. He's talking about the American people. He's talking about journalists, judges, nonpartisan election officials. He has talked about, as John Kelly has talked about, can he send the military after peaceful protesters?
Today, I joined a conversation with the Deputy Prime Minister of Canada, which I learned she's Ukrainian-born, no, Canada-born, but with Ukrainian roots. Her mother was Ukrainian, and a politician in Canada as well. And so I will present an article to you about the conversation. It was more about the trade and how it works in Canada in terms of like Indigenous people. She explained how, let's say, they create a gas pipe that goes through a territory where Indigenous people are living. And so they make it that the territory owns the part of that pipe, gas pipe or whatever. They pretty much owning part of the business, which generates revenue and gives them dignity and budget, right, to sustain themselves. And so it's pretty interesting. I will write an article about it. But she finished off by saying that, America, you're such a good neighbor when you make good decisions. And we will work with anybody, no kidding. We'll have to and we'll work. But just it's so good to be with you when you are a democracy. So everybody does understand it, just to prove the point that everybody gets it. So let's review another clip. This is about fracking, which sort of ticked me off in some sort of way, thinking, why would a random undecided person suddenly talk about fracking? Take a look.
So welcome to Delco.
Thank you.
Here in Delco, we pride ourselves on being authentic.
Yeah.
And much of what we have much of what you've been saying with regard to issues like law and order and fracking reflect a more centrist view than what people are used to hearing from Kamala Harris, leaving some voters to wonder about the authenticity of your current, more moderate positions. Can you talk a little bit about how your positions have shifted and why?
Sure, and thank you. So first of all, on fracking, I've been very clear. We kind of dispensed with this in 2020. I am not going to ban fracking. I did not as vice president. In fact, as vice president, I cast the tie-breaking vote that now has opened up more fracking leases. My value on the issue of what we need to do to invest in a clean energy economy and a clean energy future has not changed. But frankly, I now have the experience and perspective of having been vice president for almost 4 years. I've traveled the country. I know that we can invest in a clean energy economy and still not ban fracking and still work toward what we need to do to create more jobs and create U.S.-based jobs in a way that will be globally competitive. On the issue of...
And Keith, thank you for yes, thank you. It took me some time to get to do this. Thank you for noticing. We have different graphics for comments. I appreciate you. Thank you for noticing. It's like, you get your like different hair color and nobody notices. And it's like, thank you. I appreciate it. Yes, you had noticed. And best changes get unnoticed. Oh, thank you guys. Appreciate it. Thank you. Daniel, let's talk about it tomorrow. Let's talk more in detail tomorrow, so we don't get deranged from our good coverage in terms of the town hall. So this was about fracking. Now, next one was, this is a question I like. How are you going to ensure what can be done for the policies that Kamala Harris is suggesting to do pass them through Congress if it were to remain divided or to be divided? Take a look.
Codifying Roe v. Wade, that would obviously require 60 votes in the Senate, a majority of the House. That's a big leap. We don't have that yet. If that's not possible to codify it in the House, what do you do?
I think we need to take a look at the filibuster, to be honest with you. But the reality of it is this. Let's talk about how we got here. When Donald Trump was president, he hand-selected 3 members of the United States Supreme Court with the intention that they would undo the protections of Roe v. Wade. And they did as he intended. And now in 20 states, we have Trump abortion bans that include punishing healthcare providers, doctors and nurses. In Texas, do you know they provide for prison for life? For a healthcare provider for doing the job that they believe is in the best interest of their patient?
Yeah. On this point, I want to make a change here in my, where do I have it? Here. I saw a video where John Legend was on the podcast, and he spoke about his wife, Chrissy, when she had to have a medical abortion at 20 weeks, and where he understood why all of this that we're talking about does matter so much. Take a look.
People that have an abortion after 15 weeks, almost always, they wanted to keep the baby. But there's some kind of complication that came up that they have to have an abortion. So my wife, she was well past 15 weeks when she had to have an abortion. She was miscarrying and bleeding out, and all these things were happening.
Her life was in danger.
Her life was in danger. And for the government to say, oh, we need to evaluate this to make sure you're sufficiently dying before you can have an abortion. That's what they're saying in Texas and in Georgia and in all these states where they have Trump abortion bans. They're saying the government needs to evaluate whether you are sufficiently dying before you can have an abortion. Not your doctor, not you and your family, the government. No, stay out of it. Let these women, let them and their families and their doctors make these decisions. We don't need the government to be involved in it. And if the government's involved, that means the police and the district attorney are involved in medical decisions. That's crazy. It's crazy.
I agree.
And overturning Roe versus Wade, Trump wants to claim credit for it, but at the same time be like, I just put it with the states. Oh no, you put it with the states of Texas, states of Georgia, of Alabama, of, you know, you put it with these states. And by the way, that's where most black women live, in the South.
Southern states.
In the South. So that means the majority of black women are in regimes that would rather possibly let them die before giving them the life-saving treatment that they need. When we went through all these fertility struggles and then had a miscarriage, it made it even more clear to me how personal everything that happens in that room with your OBGYN, everything that happens in that room is private. And it's so intensely personal and intensely physical. A woman feels every aspect of this thing.
John, when you have to console your wife because you know how bad she wanted this child.
Yeah.
What are you saying? How do you, like Chris says, I'm sorry. There's not enough I'm sorry.
There's not enough. And the thing you got to realize is you're not going to solve the problem in that moment. And, you know, I'm a person that likes to solve the problem. Like, I'm very like, I want to solve it. I want to fix it. And sometimes you got to realize you can't fix it. You're just going to have to.
Brandon, I'm not sure he is a pro-Trump. I'm not sure. It doesn't sound like he is a Trumper or votes for Trump. I've never heard of him being pro-Trump. So honestly, I don't know. John Legend's not a Trump supporter. Trump's White House complained to Twitter about his wife. Exactly. Yeah, he is not a Trump supporter. Brandon, I don't think, maybe you're switching him with somebody. Maybe I'm thinking somebody else. Yeah, certainly, because he's never been. Let's continue. We have 3 clips to go with our debate coverage. So this time, Kamala Harris talked about the importance of working across the aisle, working with Republicans, and being a president for all. This is the lady, the real estate lady. Take a look.
Good evening. Thank you for visiting us in Delaware County, Vice President Harris. My question is this. If you could accomplish only one major policy goal that required congressional action, what would it be and why?
Well, there's not just one. I have to be honest with you, Carol. There's a lot of work that needs to happen, but I think that maybe part of this point that how I think about it is we've got to get past this era of politics and partisan politics, slowing down what we need to do in terms of progress in our country. And that means working across the aisle. I've done that before. We did it around whether it be what we were able to accomplish with the bipartisan infrastructure deal or some of the work that we have done in terms of dealing with gun safety. But we've got to work across the aisle. And it is my...
Yeah. And I have to correct myself. That's not the real estate lady. I have tiny little photos of this videos, and I had to put my glasses on to see that's not her. So I stay corrected. Now, this was kind of weird when the questions came from Anderson Cooper, who has a podcast that is dedicated to grief. Once his mother passed away, he started the podcast. He interviewed, his first, I think, interview was, an episode was with Colbert. It was very emotional. Everybody's crying, that type of emotional. And now here he suddenly pivots and asks Kamala Harris about her first conversation with her pastor. And as we all know, those are the conversations that you keep private. So why asking about it? Then he asked about the grief. And then he asked about her praying and the matter of prayer for her. So take a look.
That one of the first phone calls you made after President Biden announced that he was dropping out was to your pastor. And I'm wondering, if it wasn't a confessional, if you could say what that conversation was like.
Well, my pastor, Reverend Dr. Amos C. Brown of Third Baptist Church, it was an extraordinary day that Sunday when the president called me, and I instinctively understood the gravity of the moment, the seriousness of the moment. I didn't predict or know exactly how that day would play out, and obviously now it's been 3 months since I've been at the top of the ticket, actually 3 months as of yesterday. But I just called him. I needed that spiritual kind of connection. I needed that advice. I needed a prayer. And there's a part of the scripture that talks about Esther and a time such as this, and that's what we talked about. And it was very comforting for me. And
she also mentioned that she prays every day, sometimes twice a day. Listen, every time I fly, I pray before, after, during, because I'm a aerophobe. So what are those even questions? And Keith, to your point where you mentioned, I just highlighted your comment here. I'm still trying to to understand what his angle is with the questions. I don't either. So either to make her look emotional or overly emotional or whatever. But to everybody's point, or to my certainly point that I started making by the very beginning of this, that they delivered the clickbaity headlines, not just to CNN, but to Trump's campaign. Here's a proof. That's the email that came right after. Kamala broke it. Trump will fix it. And so it's like the latest CNBC All-American Economic Survey shows that voters say they will be better financially, right? And then they quote Wall Street Journal. Then they quote, that by 10 points, more voters have a favorable than unfavorable view of Trump's economic plan for the country, while unfavorable views of Harris' economic plan outweigh positive views by 4 points, which is absolute nonsense. Because the economic plan, it received a huge warning from Treasury Secretary Yellen, who usually doesn't do this. It received a huge warning yesterday from IMF, International Monetary Fund. I covered it. Please go back to your email from Tuesday. it receives warning from from Goldman Sachs to everybody. All the conservative advisors are warning that increasing tariffs will put us, will isolate us on the market and will tank the market itself. It's incredibly stupid. Sorry, there's no other word for it. But because media provides these false statements, it delivers the headlines to the Trump campaign so they can continue sending these emails with this stupidity. And they send these emails to what? To the press. And so press copy paste, and here we go. If you want to play both sides, you're going to be spreading misinformation because they give it to you and they provide like percentages. It kind of look like it's sophisticated and truthful, but it's not. And if you don't apply your common sense, you're going to be up for a ride. All of us will be. I have some stupid, shocking stuff from BRICS to report on today. And there's no other ways to describe it because it's such a disgrace. But anyway, so that undecided voter who is pro-life, the radio host, well, Kamala Harris came to him after everything was said and done, and she spoke to him about his stance on abortion. He's pro-life, and so she, let's not pay attention to him, but more as to how she handled it.
Please.
Do you mind turning around? We'll just do a photo with Kelly.
Thank you. Thank you for that.
Here.
And you know how I feel. This is the thing about the point on abortion. This is not a conversion, right? It's literally no one should be judged on any level, and it's just my point is the government shouldn't be telling people. It is not about ever disputing or criticizing anyone's faith. Ever. Never. You know?
And that's something to talk about.
Yeah.
When I look at the abortion question, we talk so much about the right of the woman in those situations, but there's another person.
Right.
And that other person is oftentimes
As long as it's not the government involved.
And that's the point. It's just that the government shouldn't be doing that, you know? So, but I appreciate you asking your question and raising the point.
Yeah, and you have a role as a moral leader, too.
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
I'll send it to you.
I love how she handles it. She goes straight forward to those people who certainly don't share her opinion. She talks directly. That's the prosecutor here, right? And Kamala/Mamala, right? Where she can have a personal conversation about a personal issue and opinion. Now, back to this fella. Let's assume he lives in Pennsylvania because it kind of looks like he lives in upstate New York. But who doesn't matter. I'm not calling his name, whatever. You know, let's keep it all under the sheets, whatever. Let's say he lives in Pennsylvania. He is safe. Safe to say that he will never face an abortion, right? He's a guy. Let's say he doesn't care about his relatives who might face a need for a medical abortion. Your stance that you're so pro-life that you can't vote for somebody who is pro-choice because this is the most important factor for you. You put yourself in such privileged position. And that prompted me to put this post on Twitter. I wish I had it to highlight it. Just remembered it this morning because I was thinking, you know, if you think that it's somehow your choice to decide with your vote, to decide that you're a voter and the government you vote in, you are responsible for deciding and choosing who will survive or not in case of complicated, dangerous pregnancy that has a need for medical abortion. You're not pro-life because all these pro-life folks completely disregard the life of a mother. You're not pro-life, you're pro-choice. But what matters to you and your ego is that the choice is always yours to make. Because with your vote, you took the choice from every single person, from the mother to the father to the doctor who is actually involved in this. You thought that you need to decide. How arrogant, how disgusting, how despicable, how old century, barbaric. Germany is facing an election. September 2025 with Scholz and everybody. The fascists I mean, Nazis. They're literally they saluting and all that. All the Hitler Jugend stuff is there, right? All this bamboozle. You know the issues they run on? Now, if I list them to you, it might sound familiar. Closing the borders, banning abortion. Sounds familiar? And making Christianity the religion. That's the issues they're running on in Germany. The fascists, sponsored by Russians, came out today. That this big article. They're involved in this as much as in the US. There's a guy literally working. It was revealed today that the guy works to, his only job is to fabricate like fake videos of Kamala Harris and put it everywhere online. And he's hired by the Russians. He lives in the United States. I'll share the article with you. Now, you see the commonality? You see the same issues being portrayed everywhere? Russia was the one who advocated, right? First, they allowed Syria to start bombing folks. Then they made sure, right, that Syria produces a big amount of refugees and migrants. Then they played this entire really social media induced thing that Germany and all EU countries have to let them in, open the borders for refugees from Syria because you have to save them. And I understand it's humane, I get it, but it was very much Russia induced. And then these folks entered in Austria, marched by feet throughout the countries to Germany. And now there's a big population of Muslim demographic in Germany. So running on an issue of making Christianity the thing is now relevant in Germany, weirdly. When I grew up in Germany, we didn't have this thing. Yeah, we had a bunch of migrants, but it wasn't an issue. It was created. So it just shows you how long this process is planned out and how successful they are in executing it. I hope you could follow what I just shared. Anyway, you need some explanation, I can certainly show it. I love this about Kamala. She's serious about her outreach. It's not about questions for the camera. She always hangs around afterwards to talk to people. Indeed. Daniel says fascists are obsessed with birth rate. Exactly, because they need to produce people who will be fighting, right? That's the main idea. Alrighty, so as we move on, let's talk about what happened today. I mentioned today was the Obama / Springsteen / Samuel L. Jackson / Spike Lee / Tyler Perry rally. And so here's some moments that I want to share. Certainly not the whole thing, because we would be spending the whole night together. But first video is from Tyler Perry, and this is, it's not about what I showed before, but this is the example of what is being made in America. What does it mean to be self-made in America, and what is possible?
You want to hear something about an American dream? Fort McPherson was once a Confederate Army base where there were Confederate soldiers trying to plot and plan on how to keep 3.9 million Negroes enslaved. Now that land is owned by me.
Now this. And we want to go back? Make America great again? For whom? For whom? For the white fat guy who owned slaves? Like for that? Are we going back there? What is this time machine? Where are we headed? When was it so great for everybody? Disgusting. I want to highlight this. Bonnie said that their Magaville are certainly referring to birth control as abortion. They don't get particulates of the treatment. Really? Oh, that's just upsetting. And also, like, that's very Hasidic of them, right? The Hasidic culture does not allow birth control, and certainly they run for abortion, right? There was this somebody commented, right, with the story of the GOP guy who got a girl pregnant and then mixed something in her drink to cause an abortion per se, and she almost lost her life to it. When needed, then it's okay. I mean, Trump at some point joked that he better open an abortion clinic because he can't pay for all of them. So, but on a good note, I love the clip of Tyler Perry. Me too. Me too. So let's stick to positive. Let's stick to positive. So, next clip I want to show you is Kamala Harris. And she talked about how Donald Trump inherited $400 million. Actually, it was $1 billion. I showed it to you earlier. It was some video. So go to day before yesterday broadcast live stream. So I showed all the videos and how his dad got the money and what Trump really got. It was more or less cash, $1 billion based on the rentals that his father built and he inherited. But anyway, she talks about him being a very unsuccessful businessman.
And unlike Donald Trump, who had $400 million served to him on a silver platter and still managed to file for bankruptcy 6 times, he talks about being a good businessman. Come on. Unlike him, I grew up in a middle-class neighborhood with a working mother who kept a strict budget and did everything she could to make sure my sister and I had all that we needed.
And that's my question as to we need a leader whom we can relate to, because this leader will what? Understand our needs and will represent our views. If you choose somebody, let's say you love, we all love Taylor Swift, right? Is your life very much relatable to Taylor Swift? No. But then you ask yourself, where did she come from? Can she relate to where you are now? She certainly can, because she grew up in a, let's say, average family, and then she's self-made. But if you, let's say, can you relate to somebody who was born with a silver spoon, who was fed with, everything they never even desired? It was already there. Can they ever relate to you? No. And for that reason, these people are only there for themselves. They never had to fight to get anything. Everything was there. So they had to come up with a crazy idea to be motivated to even get up and do something. This is not your situation. If it's your situation, God bless you. Enjoy it. But in all, majority of folks, this is not the situation. So why would you choose somebody whom you perhaps admire? Okay, read his book, watch Apprentice, paint your face orange, slap a pumpkin, steal the face, and then make it yours. But decide who is there to represent you. It's not a celebrity. It's not somebody. It's a leader who has to fight for your interest and deliver. That's the next step, and deliver. But that's really up to them to test their own character. Now, this is Kamala Harris quoting the very famous quote from Barack Obama. And then he follows with his speech.
And make no mistake, we will win. We will win. We will win. Or as a certain former president would say, yes, we can.
And next, former President Obama followed, and he said, I want to explain that in politics, a good rule of thumb is don't say you want to do anything with Hitler. It's really sad that we even have to discuss it, but here we go.
The other day, General John Kelly, Donald Trump's former chief of staff, said that Trump told him he wanted his generals to be like Hitler's generals. Now, don't boo, vote. Now, I want to explain that in politics, a good rule of thumb is don't say you want to do anything like Hitler. That's just good political advice. But
It's very interesting if you study Hitler's story. The guy was homeless, very poor. He was a painter. He painted paintings, and he is Austrian. Austria is a country, and he grew up there. And he was sleeping under staircase in a building, and that's where they let him sleep. And he would paint pictures for it and get food. And so that's where they started the gathering of what later became the Nazi Party. It started gathering in that building where he slept, where they let him sleep. And so at some point he joined that meeting, and they saw that he had a charisma. And he joined, just to be fat and have a warm dinner or whatever. And so they saw that he had a charisma. And so this Nazi Party, which was Austria / German, they made him literally. They trained him. They used, different like a folk is coming, like Michael Jackson type of story. Remember, like when he would jump up and all that kind of like the effects from that time. Now it would be CGI, but there you had to work with things like lighting and microphone, and his first word would be louder than the next one, and they trained different movements and all that kind of stuff. So they produced him. And when he was installed, right, he was very much advocated for, and the PR campaign was all over Germany. Germans chose him, right? So he never invaded, or it was never by force. Germans chose him because this entire PR campaign worked. And here's the funny thing: when they chose him to be Chancellor of Germany, he still had Austrian passport. So all this Hitler story, if you really read about it, how fabricated all of it was, and how he wrote at some point that he joined the Nazi Party because it sounded profitable and somebody suddenly saw somebody in him. So they took a guy from the street and made him this puppet, right? And then he took over, and certainly, and then the whole Stalin story, right, where they close a pact that nobody will invade anybody. Stalin planned that Hitler will take over France and Poland, and then Stalin will take over Hitler. So he kind of will use his hands, like if Hitler will dirty his hands, and then he will take over Hitler. But then Hitler invades first, and then they had to respond and defend themselves. So it's a pretty interesting story. And none of these things happen just by accident. It's always, there is always a preparation that takes years to influence people's minds and to make people vote for such guy who will then continue. And this story does not remind me on Trump, it rather reminds me on Vance. Vance, who grew up in a family struggling, right? His mother has a past, or had a past, whatever their situation is. Hope she's fine and well, but struggling, right? And then he's joining this Peter Thiel, and they can't be a president. They weren't born here. Now he fits the mold, and now he's produced to be, with the eyeliner and all of it, but then with the gestures, he's sleek, he's learning, he's doing, and then this is the guy who will be executing. That's what it reminds me of. And history is very important to be studied because it always repeats itself. Trump is the ticket to get into the White House because the buffoons follow him. Hitler eventually killed himself. We don't know. I mean, it was sad that he did. He killed Eva Braun, his niece, who was his lover, and then himself. But you never know what really, maybe USSR gave him a pass, and because there's certainly also rumors and photos of him, dying in the mountains at a very late age, old age. They say the history repeats itself, and it's happening now. Exactly. Yeah, there's always Bonnie. There's always puppeteers pulling the puppet strings. Exactly. Vance is like a Manchurian candidate. Exactly. Yes, Bonnie. Yeah, I absolutely agree. And that's why it's really interesting to study history and to see. Now, good thing, history in the making. If we speak about, passing the torch or whatever, for me, this made me cry. This is Obama and Harris' first time together on stage. You know what it reminded me on? And I found the picture. It reminded me on this picture where Harris, back in the day, was knocking on doors. Canvassing, right? Whatever you call it. Knocking on doors for Obama. This is Kamala Harris back in the day. What is 2008? Working for Obama campaign, volunteering. So that is an American story right here. And that's why this country is like no other country. And we have to protect its beauty, right? And like any beautiful woman, you know, who wants to be nice to everybody, after being slapped right, left, and center, you hopefully sooner than later learn then to protect your kindness and beauty. And for guys, same thing. To protect your kindness and happiness, you have to set boundaries, and you have to be rough, and you have to fight for it. You have to. You never protect your beauty and kindness and wonderfulness if you're so kind to everybody. Now you have to fight for it. And she's a fighter, and she's doing it, and she's earning it. Just to keep in mind. Now let's talk about Trump. That's disgusting. Don't eat anything. Here's a video. Remember this buffoon wanted a Purple Heart?
And he said, that's my real Purple Heart. I have such confidence in you. And I said, man, that's like big stuff. I always wanted to get the Purple Heart. This was much easier.
He got the Purple Heart.
What a great job you've done for our country. But I would like to have that shirt that has my name on the back. Yes, sir, it has my name on the back.
1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. Thank you.
And that's the original. I can see that.
Yes, sir. It's got the. Okay.
The veteran guy. You have no family to advise you better? There was a whole speech. He got a Purple Heart for the bleeding ear that healed with no holes in it. I don't know what to say. I don't want to insult the guy. Well, I guess thank you for your service. More South African billionaires are for Trump. If you're a subscriber of LA Times editorial chief quits after owner blocks Harris endorsement. And by the way, it's the second time already blocking stuff pro-Harris. Mariel Garza said that the editorial board was prepared to endorse Kamala Harris, but the paper's owner, Patrick Soon-Shiong, decided not to make an endorsement in the presidential race. Now, this guy here is the richest oncologist in the world. He came up with a medicine that is now used to treat 3 kinds of cancer. That made him the billionaire. And so you just saw the headline, but he's a businessman, investor, richest oncologist in the world, who was in talks with the Trump administration about the possibility of serving in a senior role overseeing the U.S. healthcare system back in 2017. So I guess he's trying again. So if you're a LA Times subscriber, this thing, LA Times, think twice, because this guy is getting your hard-earned cash. Talking about foreign influence, by the way, this guy is a South African and American businessman. He was born in South Africa, or born in China, grew up in South Africa. Comments. My dad and brothers all have Purple Hearts. Turns my stomach. Bonnie, I feel you. I'm sorry. And thank them for their service. That's just disgusting and shameful. Yeah. He has 2 Purple Hearts now. I don't know. Purple Hearts are poor sitting in the junk drawer. Yeah, and then the first thing he comments on, oh, it's a real thing. You actually gave me a real thing. It's real heavy. Never asked even why he got the Purple Heart for. What did it? Anyway. Okay. So foreign influence on the upcoming U.S. elections. China, Iran, and Russia are intensifying efforts to interfere in the upcoming U.S. elections, according to Microsoft's report that came out today. Russian operatives have been disseminating false content to undermine Democratic vice presidential candidate Tim Walz, while U.S. intelligence has warned that the vote's integrity remains intact despite these threats. Microsoft noted that Chinese actors are targeting lower-tier Republican candidates, and Iranian hackers are probing election-related websites, indicating plans for further influence operations. Russia is also spreading deepfake content aimed at Vice President Kamala Harris's campaign. Think about the baby stuff that she's murdering black babies. That's the China-produced thing, made in China. Just a warning. Now, this is an interesting thing. We had a whole meeting yesterday. Finally, we can talk about it. So Biden-Harris administration launched National Security Memorandum on AI. Today, President Biden issued the first NSM, National Security Memorandum, on artificial intelligence, emphasizing the technology's significant implications for national security and foreign policy. The NSM outlines a coordinated approach to ensure the U.S. leads in the safe and trustworthy development of AI while harnessing its potential for national security purposes. Key actions include improving semiconductor supply chains, prioritizing intelligence on foreign competition, and establishing the AI Safety Institute as a primary contact for industry collaboration. The NSM also introduces governance frameworks for using AI in national security, focusing on democratic values and human rights protections. More details will be in your email. Two things to talk about, for instance, which was really interesting and I never thought about it. When it comes to AI, there's two huge concerns. AI has to be trained based on data. So there's a whole market of data so there's companies that sell data. They get the data from, let's say, our service providers or whatever. They're getting our messages, phone calls, whatever. They claim it's nameless, right? So they're just gathering all of it. And they're having this information, they're selling it to AI companies. At this point, they're not tracking where those AI companies are based. For this reason, China, Russia have our data because they can easily access it on the market. So that's a huge problem to kind of navigate. At this point, this NSM, this is what we asked, is voluntarily. So it's not like you're going to be prosecuted. There are companies who volunteered to adhere and adjust their operations towards according to this memorandum, but it's at this point volunteering. Second thing, AI is very big for military operations. Think about drones. The drone is flying, the drone is detecting target, the drone is shooting. Now, here comes the thing. When it comes to physical action or any military action, Commander-in-Chief, our president, has to give it a green light to execute this mission. When the drone does that legally, it avoids the need for Commander-in-Chief to give the permission because it's a drone and not a military part or whatever. So legally, they can't control this type of action, which causes a whole different story because anybody can own a drone, right? Not our military, but somebody else, and can just like conduct a strike, but the drone did it, so the people will not be prosecuted. So at this point, they're diving into it. They're trying to reinvent the wheel. Let's see how all of this works, but the details are in your email. I don't know if this part of your clip cycle tonight just sent you something. Yeah, I saw the Biden jogging. I want to include it tomorrow in my coverage about Arizona. Yes, he was jogging. Running towards the media, running to be screamed at. And then he said, I'm flying to Arizona to apologize. So yes, I'll put it tomorrow in the full coverage. But thank you, Brendan. I appreciate it. Okay. Now, quickly about Boeing, a lot will be in your email, so it's pretty interesting. Boeing is facing major challenges in defense sector amid $2 billion loss. They could not deliver They failed to exercise on the deliverables in the contract, so they're losing that part. Now this will cause a workforce reduction of about 10% aimed at streamlining operations. The details, again, are in your email, so if that's of your interest, please read, because it's getting late, so I want to be mindful of your time. Now, let's talk about Ukraine. New information that came from Wall Street Journal reporters today is that Elon Musk has been in regular contact with Russian President Putin since late 2022. At one point, Putin asked him to avoid activating his Starlink internet service over Taiwan as a favor to Chinese leader Xi, said two people briefed on the request. So, the same applies for Ukraine. Let's not be delusional. What I found interesting and kind of I don't get it. Maybe you get it. Zelensky delivered his speech. He bans press, and so he delivers speeches and blocks himself. Wearing this shirt, "Make Russia Small Again." I understand the joke. And then this shirt you can buy it someplace, and it shows like the map of Moscovia when Russia was just Moscow in 1462. And so it's like, "Make Russia small again." I get it. I just don't like the whole like "Make Russia Small Again." It's like the MAGA thing. Maybe it's funny. What do you guys think? Is it funny? Is it? I don't know. I saw it. I thought about how media claimed he couldn't walk. Oh, Keith. Yeah. That's about Biden. Yeah, about the shirt. Do you guys think it's funny? I don't know. Maybe it's funny. Maybe it's like sort of a Trump appealing. I don't know. But let's talk about the BRICS summit. So UN Secretary General today, which is 79th anniversary since the UN Charter, which UN is based on, it's the constitution of UN, was put into force 79 years ago, 1945. He chose, instead of being in New York at the UN headquarters, perhaps Brussels, maybe other headquarters, but where we had events and speeches and concerts and dancing and singing and everything, he chose to spend that day, I'm not kidding, bowing to murderer Putin. He traveled to the BRICS summit that featured not just Russia, but also, of course, China, Iran, Taliban, in Kazan, which is a Tatarstan Republic of Russia, in Russia. There he also met with Vladimir Putin personally. And that's how he chose to spend this day, commemorate the 79th anniversary of so-called United Nations Day. Now, this year's celebration for 79th anniversary and the UN Day, because they always set a title. And I'm not kidding. It's "The world needs the UN. The UN needs us." I would add a question mark to this. I worked at the UN. I still don't know why it exists. Let me put it this way. You know, at some point, we used birds, pigeons, to get a message, right? And to deliver messages as a source of like a method of communication, right? And so the birds were delivering messages and whatever. Now in 2024, we have other methods, right, that are probably more reliable. So what do? We don't kill the pigeons. We just unemploy them, so to speak. So perhaps UN has to be unemployed. What's the use of it? Or present the use of it. What are they doing? What have they done? UN guys joined Hamas in Gaza. That's why they were detained. They were wearing UN vests and meanwhile standing with a rifle. There's a picture of them, 20 plus, those folks sitting down, being detained by IDF. What are they doing? Why is the UN general bowing to the murderer who today killed babies in Ukraine? He killed babies. I can show you pictures. We see them every day. I'm just don't show you those pictures. It's a murderer who kills people every single day. But not just that. He got schooled by Putin today. The video of Putin schooling him is in Russian, but here's what Guterres delivered at the UN looking at the murderer Putin who started the war in Ukraine. Take a look.
We must strengthen and update the machinery of peace. This includes reforms to make the United Nations Security Council reflective of today's world. We need peace in Ukraine, a just peace in line with UN Charter, international law, and General Assembly resolutions. Everywhere, we must uphold the values of the UN Charter, the rule of law, and the principles of sovereignty, territorial integrity, and political independence of all states. Now, we must turn words into deeds, and we believe BRICS can play a very important role in this direction. Thank you very much.
Maybe when talking about peace, he literally means piss. That's what he said. The machine of piss. Maybe that's, you need bricks for that. You need bricks to piss on. You guys don't think that the shirt is funny. I agree. Keith's not funny. Brandon, I don't think it's funny. Chinetta, hey Chinetta! Not funny. Yeah, not funny. And then why was he bowing? Yeah, I don't know. What is, it's not like in his culture. Like, imagine he would be from a culture where you have to bow to show respect. No, this guy is not from Asia, for God's sakes. So you heard him. He urged for machinery of peace, emphasizing the need for peace in Ukraine, yet the plea was delivered to Putin, the very man responsible for starting the war. Now, Guterres, I want to remind you, Guterres never condemned Russia for invading Ukraine. He never asked Russia to stop the war. Never. He never referred to Russia as aggressor. Never. 3 years in. So Putin, and the video is in Russian, so I'm not going to waste your time. But anyway, Putin used this opportunity to publicly assert his dominance. He said like this. He spoke like, come on, boy, listen to me, bowing boy. He used the opportunity to publicly assert his dominance, calling for reform of the UN to increase the influence of Russian-aligned nations, particularly dictatorial regimes in Asia, Africa, and Latin America. Although Guterres accepted this demand, his discomfort was evident. Please tell me Putin never planned for BRICS summit to accidentally fall on the UN day to school the Secretary General of the UN about reforms to include pro-Russian dictatorships. Who is this dumb? Guterres failed to condemn Russia's invasion of Ukraine or name Russia as the aggressor. Instead, he vaguely called for upholding the values of the UN Charter. That's their meeting. Now, Putin also praised Donald Trump's so-called peace plan for Ukraine, which seemed more like his own plan. Ukraine has to leave everything to Russia. Let just Russia roll over. Now, please tell me Putin didn't write Trump's peace plan. Or are we still talking about piss instead of peace? Axis of evil is alive and well and growing. I think UN, that's literally, you're reading my mind. I wrote on Twitter, I said, either Guterres has to be fired, has to be the end of Guterres as the Secretary General, or it will be the end of the UN as we know it. It will join the axis of evil, and it will become more difficult to dismantle it in the matter of time, because it will be backed up by China and Russia. Yeah, he didn't fall out of the window. Yeah, Trump's got peace plan. Peace plan. Then the stage display of diplomacy continued as Guterres, in a shocking moment, embraced Belarusian President Alexander Lukashenko, thanking him for his gifts. Now, the guy, the Lukashenko, that's a dictator. He steals people off the street. If they put something bad about him and his regime on social media, people disappear off the streets. The athletes are banned from going to international competitions because they know they will never return. He has several sons who are there to overtake the governance. Now, this is Guterres with Lukashenko.
Пока они будут заходить, я тебе покажу. Это символ мира. Наши аисты. Нам, Антонио, очень нужен мир.
He gave him the symbol of peace. This is the birds, a symbol of peace, because we all need peace, he said, just translating. Now, Guterres' actions left many questioning his credibility as the UN Secretary General, with doubts swirling about the organization's future if he remains in office. Certainly so. Now, that's not all. That's not all. In contrast, the BRICS countries celebrated the Kazan Declaration, because it was in Kazan, planning to present it at the UN. Now, what are they presenting? Are you ready? A prototype for a single currency intended to replace the dollar was also shared, further emphasizing the shifting global dynamics. Putin remarked, quote, "The dollar is being used as a weapon," unquote. Though he insisted Russia is not fighting the dollar, just exploring alternatives. He labeled the BRICS participants as representing the world's majority countries. That's their new thing. Now, please tell me, why the hell they put Mexico on that thing? You see here, Estados Unidos Mexicanos. Why is Mexico on this thing? Mexico wasn't even there. Whoa. They're taking Argentina. Argentina wasn't even there. It's incredible. So they will be presenting this thing at the UN and vote on it. And Russia is headlining UN Security Council. So probably this thing will pass. Now, I'm not sure if this is an edited thing, but I hope this will be real. But no, I don't think it's real. But it could be a good time cover. Peace now, bro. Just want bloody Russian money. What a fun occasion. Disgusting. What the fuck? Yeah. Hobnobbing with authoritarians should be enough to impeach. Exactly, Bonnie. Exactly. Like, why? His guy shouldn't be coming home. I kind of get the whole unity thing, but crazy. Yeah, and exactly. So Russia has an issue. It trades with China. China buys oil at price value from Russia, right? And China says, no, we're just going to buy stuff at price value. Because Treasury Secretary Yellen put the sanctions specifically on Russian banks, they can't pay in dollars, right? But China says the sanctions are also prohibiting them to be paid in yen. And so what they're doing now, Russians, in order to buy anything from China, right, in terms of imports, they need to take gold, literally gold, fly to China, sell it at the price that Chinese set for them, convert it hereby into yen, and then deposit it into local bank account. So for that reason, they're creating this some weird currency. But what is this currency going to be supported for and with? Is China going to like it? No, hell no. China doesn't need that, 100 of those, blah, 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 whatever that is. Crazy. Exactly, Bonnie. I agree. So, as to NATO, 7 countries, Germany, USA, Slovakia, Hungary, Belgium, Slovenia, and Spain rejected Ukraine's invitation to join the alliance, as reported by Politico, signaling an upsetting moment in global politics. Biden promised that if Kamala Harris wins, he will start the process of inviting Ukraine. Let's hope. I guess it's all in our hands at this point. Road to crypto. Exactly. Yep. Quickly about North Korea. So there's a readout in your email that was sent yesterday. So Because they sent the troops to Russia and didn't tell, obviously, North Korean public, they have to hide the families who sent their loved ones, hopefully they're loved, to Russia, right? So now they're isolating North Korean military families amid deployment to Russia. And so Russia is paying $2,000 per person, per soldier to North Korea. And North Korea, so they sent 3,000 North Korean troops. It will be 10,000 by December. That's at least what the Jang Ho-jin, head of South Korea's intelligence agency, said. The Yonhap report also stated that Russia pays approximately $2,000 per month for each soldier, while the average monthly salary in North Korea was estimated to be just $1 to $3 in 2022. It's likely that most of this payment does not reach the North Korean military personnel and their families, but remains with the state. So Kim Jong-un just literally selling people. $2,000 he gets, $1 he gives them. It's a pretty good deal. Well, I hope they survive, though. Well, I actually do not hope. Now, yesterday, while in Rome, Secretary Austin, our Secretary of Defense, finally admitted that North Korean forces are headed to Ukraine on behalf of Russia, yet he stated that he needs more details to see why are they there. Are they there to fight or not? Now, what's new is that initial units of DPRK, North Korean military, have already reached the combat zone. This has been reported by Ukrainians. Ukrainians are there, so they see them vividly, so let's freaking trust it. According to the main Directorate of Intelligence of Ukraine's Defense Ministry, notably on October 23rd, the presence of North Korean soldiers was observed in Russia's Kursk region. That's where Ukrainians crossed the border. The main Directorate of Intelligence estimates that approximately 12,000 military personnel from North Korea have been deployed to Russia, including 500 officers and 3 generals. Meanwhile, Ukrainian authorities have released a video narrated in Korean that encourages DPRK soldiers to surrender. I showed it to you yesterday. The video showcases POW facilities and promises good treatment, suggesting that surrendering offers freedom for those willing to break free. Now, remember yesterday I quickly stated that South Korea announced their willingness to help Ukraine, supply them with missiles, teach them how to fight North Koreans, also help translating, navigating, and whatnot. Now, given this information, today, according to Yonhap news agency, the fire broke at the 55th supply depot in Beomil Dong, whatever, at 6:31 p.m. I guess that's already yesterday for them. The 55th supply facility was used by U.S. military to store equipment brought in by U.S. forces through the port of Busan. The fire is currently engulfing a large warehouse. So it's pretty much where in South Korea, it's a military base that U.S. is using to store weapons in case we need it to defend South Korea or Taiwan or anybody in that area. So take a look. That's the fire that it happened.
부산에 있는 미군 부대 보급 창고에서 오늘 오후 큰 불이 났습니다. 소방 당국은 대응 2단계를 발령하고 진화 작업을 벌이고 있는데요.
So, Middle East, real quick. Israel reported yesterday that it had killed a potential successor for the late Hezbollah leader, Hassan Nasrallah, in an airstrike. While in Israel, Secretary Blinken stated that the official position of Israeli government is not to occupy Gaza, although the former Israeli generals were reported to have gathered by the border with Gaza, discussing the plans to begin reoccupation. Israeli Defense Minister Gallant informed Air Force crews on October 23rd that following strikes in Iran, the world will recognize Israel's strength and its adversaries will learn an important lesson. This was shared in a video and a post on X by his office. Israel has been preparing a response to ballistic missile attack from Iran that happened on October 1st, marking Tehran's second direct assault on Israel in 6 months. So, I want to show you a video with Pennsylvania Commissioner Lindy Lee, who really didn't mince any words and was very straightforward as to Netanyahu and his plans.
Netanyahu has already sent many signals that he's not interested in formulating a deal. He's not interested in peace. He wants his friend Trump back in office. I'm sorry, I'm not going to mince any words, but this is just reality. Trump and Netanyahu are bosom friends, and they're alike in many ways. Both are trying to escape prosecution. Both realize that they want the war to continue. Netanyahu is beholden to his coalition government, and he doesn't want to face justice. That's why he's trying to prolong and expand the regional war.
Yeah, I'm reading your comments. If North Korean troops surrender, they will survive, but that's not likely to happen. Yeah, they've only had practice good step parades. I don't see them holding in battles. Exactly. I mean, like, they will fold like a chair. Damn big fireball. Yeah. This means spy inside. Yeah, exactly. I mean, that's history buff here. Yeah, Bibi is corrupted. Oh, yeah, and he is to be prosecuted in December for corruption charges. So, yeah, and she speaks the truth. Yes, I recommend following her on Twitter. She's pretty great. Very pro Biden too. So for the soul, we finally arrived here. For the soul, we have some videos for the soul. Here's a wholesome video of well, first. Today, all day, we celebrated New York Liberty. It's the first time in whatever, like the 70s, that New York won a championship. They won WNBA, women's basketball championship. It was a parade. It was a ceremony. It was a thing at the City Hall with Adams. That's why I wasn't eager to be there. But anyway, here's Schumer dancing with Letitia James at the parade. Why do I like her and I dislike him? I don't know. Well, you know, with him, I saw him at that dinner, right? With that Catholic thing, like a disgusting middle classes not here, sitting next to Trump and this Dolan and like elbowing Dolan and he giggling. I know Schumer wasn't giggling, but he sat there. I'm like, I have to digest it. So here's a wholesome video of Jose Andres. Remember the World Central Kitchen with Walls because he just voted for him. Take a look.
People of America, I voted today. And do you know who I voted for?
Thank you very much.
Hey.
Appreciate it, brother.
Bye, guys.
Go vote.
Go vote.
Thank you.
Cute. So weird seeing Chuck Schumer without a suit. Exactly. I think if I see Biden in like joggers and stuff, I'll be like, actually, we saw him. Yeah, in Delaware. He's letting loose. Yeah. Okay. Now, here's former President Obama went on a podcast with Halliburton, right? That's the NBA player. Please correct me if I'm wrong. Talking about non-voters. It's pretty good. Take a look.
We used to say, so let me get this straight. You're not going to vote, which means you're going to let a bunch of old people decide your future. You wouldn't do that about your music. You wouldn't do that about your clothes. But you're going to let them decide what your future, your potential careers, what the environment's going to look like. You're going to let them decide that? And you're just going to opt out. That doesn't make any sense. And that, I think, is the main message that I have for folks. It's not that hard to vote. And, people vote for All-Star Weekend. People vote on everything. They're voting on American Idol. You can vote to decide who's going to represent you in our country.
For sure.
To his point, exactly. So here's the First Lady, Jill Biden, guiding kids. Remember I told you about the renovated White House tour? So take a look of her guiding the kids through the tour.
As you walk through this house, I hope you'll feel the history here. It's your history, and it lives in each of you, connecting you to those who have walked before you and to each other. Keep exploring new parts of our history. Keep that wisdom with you as you shape the future of our nation. And maybe one day, and I'm talking to all the students here, maybe one day, one of your portraits will be hanging here, watching over the next generation of students.
Cute. Very cute. You know what's really good about this tour? They now included not just former presidents and the first ladies, but they included those who built the White House, including slaves who built the White House. So you see, like, okay, this portion of the White House was built by these people, and then it's like you learn about them, what type of life they lived, and what happened to them after, and stuff like. So it's like celebrating. It's kind of weird, but recognizing. That's the word I'm looking for. Recognizing everybody who was involved of building the White House and then protecting it, preserving it. Also, the staff that runs the White House. It's a very, it's so cool. I encourage you to watch also history. Well, I'm a history buff, but there's a wonderful documentary about the family that runs the White House in terms of like kitchens and everything. And I went there by accident. Anyway, I saw that, yes, it's real people that were in the documentary. And it's a family, and it's a Black family that runs the White House. And they call themselves as permanent residents of the White House who serve non-permanent presidents. And so some of them that were very old, like into their 90s, late 90s, they stayed to serve just to see Obama being a president and just to serve him. So it was just mind-blowing how, history changed, and they remained protecting the White House. So cool. And honestly, I can just recommend this documentary. I can tell you or post a link to it. Okay, lastly, this is really important. Remember, First Lady started the initiative about allocating money into research for women's health, because every medicine, everything that has been studied is basically for men or studied on men. And so now Biden administration has invested a lot into women's health and research. And what prompted it is actually her going to the doctor where she felt like she has heartache or something. And the doctor said, no, you're just overreacting. It's probably stress. And she's like, why? We women, at certain point, have just to feel like we're stupid. We're making stuff up. Why nobody's, studying our health? Because hormones are different. Things are different. So take a look.
It seems like women's bodies are considered miracles when we're in our childbearing years and mysteries as we age. Joe signed the most comprehensive executive order ever to expand and improve research and innovation in women's health. The NIH is investing millions of dollars in new interdisciplinary women's health research and how menopause affects our hearts, brains, and bones. And just today, and I hope you are all aware of this, ARPA-H, the agency that Joe created to invest in the most cutting-edge health breakthroughs, announced $110 million for women's health researchers and startups to bring new treatments and cures to the market. This is government at its best.
It is. And, my point was that we can also have some news for the soul, or like happy news, also featuring elected officials or, Jill Biden's case, first ladies. It can be wholesome. It's really up to us to choose the right path. So at this point, I'm done informing you and bothering you here with. We'll see each other tomorrow, same time, same place, on Friday, and then we'll see the weekend if we have something to cover. President Biden will be in Pennsylvania on Saturday for First Lady. VP Harris on Sunday, Obama on Monday, all in Pennsylvania. So actually, yeah, Pennsylvania. So we'll get to cover that, and then we are gathering to watch the. What are we gathering to watch again? You told me. Let's have a watch party. I'll go through your comments. I'm just end of the day. PBS has a new documentary on menopause. It's excellent. Recommend it. Oh, thank you, Bonnie. Yeah, let's watch it. I recommend everybody to watch it, including guys. Better informed. Women's complaints have been ignored over centuries. It's about time we study menopause. It's like it's a secret. Exactly. And it's like we're not supposed to talk about it. It's just exactly. It's a miracle body, and then it's a mystery body, and nothing ever happens. Exactly. Glad I got to tune in tonight. Always refreshing. Fourth Night Report. Thank you, Bonnie. I appreciate you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Very hopeful Kamala has a messaging plan for her administration, because this stuff goes unnoticed and unreported. Yeah. No, I agree. Yeah. Guys especially watch. Exactly. So you'll understand your mom, your sister, your wife, your cousin, whoever. We have to be understanding each other. That's where it all begins. Okay. Now, please like it, share it, whatever. On Twitter thing, you have to save it. Like that's the whole thing that they're counting now these days. Like that weird thing, like save whatever, or like put it in a category. I don't know. Anyway, that thing what counts. And if you are on YouTube, follow, like whatever we can do to stay in touch. I got so many messages today that you can't see my Twitter thing. You have to search for me to see. So I understand I'm being hidden based on what I say. It's not a miracle. I'm not also convinced that this Twitter journey will be very long, because they will make it unbearable, but we'll see. We keep the fight, we keep it positive, we keep it factual. He had no idea about it. Yeah. I had my guy watch it. Yeah, exactly. Right. And I would learn about it, because it's like we always, what, at least, yes. Thank you, Keith. Yes, that's the party on Tuesday. Okay, I'm going to put it up and share the link to sign up for it. Twitter been shit for a long time. I know. I joined 2016 and never used it. I started using it like about a year ago at this point, Okay, thank you for watching. Thank you for your support. Get on the newsletter if you support. Thank you so much. This matters so much. It allows me to do all of it. Thank you, and we see each other tomorrow. Okay, I'm not going to show you any dancing Beyonce videos, because it will be copyright hidden, and I will not perform for you Beyonce. Watch it for yourself, and then we discuss. Okay. Speeches, yes, I'll show, but no performance. No, none of that stuff. Okay, watch it for yourself. Okay, thank you so much, guys. Have a good night.